Vanderbilt is a playoff team. They can make the run. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in to a Wednesday edition of the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Hope your week is going extremely well. Joining me is a clean-shaven Mike Huesmann. He hasn't been clean-shaven yet on this show, so he is debuting his lack of facial hair. With Mike, we're going to talk about Vandy kind of trying to play better on the perimeter. We're going to look at the numbers there. We're going to look at Auburn's numbers offensively as they're in their passing game. We're going to look at how Auburn's going to stop Pavia, where they rank in certain categories, how that plays into their hand, how Vandy can attack that. But first, man, we're gonna discuss Vandy's run to the college football playoffs. Yes, they can do it. They can win the Final Three. But before we get into any of that, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Mike, in your honest opinion, A, it's a two-parter.
Okay.
A, can Vandy make a run here in the Final Three? Can they make the playoffs? And B, if they do, is the top 15 jumbled up enough to where it's going to get interesting?
Yes, and yes, potentially. They certainly could win their last three. That's not to say they will, but right now there's 8 teams in the SEC with a realistic chance to make the playoffs. They are one of them, a team who can do it. In terms of jumbled, there's so much riding on the other conferences. It went great for the SEC this last weekend. We already had Miami with the second loss. We had Georgia Tech dropping one they probably shouldn't have against NC State, almost ensuring the ACC is now a one-bid league. Now,
yes, for sure.
The
now,
Big
Virginia,
12,
Georgia Tech is still sitting there.
yes. But I'd be surprised at this point if a second one gets in, though it's not off the table. I think it's unlikely. Where it becomes a possibility in a debate would be if that second team who's 10-2 is Miami, because they beat a Notre Dame that's probably going to be 10-2 as well. That's a realistic debate we might be having. And we might be having 2 out of the Big 12. We only had one last year. BYU and Texas Tech both look like they got a shot to make it.
Yeah, I'm about to. When you look at the top 25, you look at the rankings, things like that. Like Texas, if they win out, obviously they're in. They get the tiebreaker over Vanderbilt, so that that's something that you have to consider.
Texas winning out is an interesting one if they win out the regular season and lose the SEC title game, because then you have a third loss.
Yeah, and then that would be something where this is a playoff for them. They have to win, no questions asked, because they have when I say they have zero margin of error, they have zero margin of error. Now, this is something where, and I wanted to use this locked on graphic here. I'm about to pull it up if I can, if my computer will let me. But you look at the rankings. Obviously, is Ohio State, are they the favorite? Like, is it kind of not really a slam?
Absolutely.
Like they're kind of starting to kind of pull away, right?
Until they lose, they're the most complete team. They're not showing weaknesses. They've replaced their O-line better than I thought they would, which was the question. Julian Sain is now one of the Heisman favorites. They're a team that is doing everything pretty well right now.
Yeah, for sure. And because I wanted to use the locked on graphic, I know we have the handy.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, so it's all locked on shows except for Memphis. Mike, if you want to join the network, we could get you on talking about Memphis. But
probably get a pretty good winner talking Tiger basketball too. They got a good following there.
They do. They need something. So when you look at this, obviously Buckeyes, unless Indiana just absolutely falls off the face of the earth against Penn State, Wisconsin, and Purdue, just highly unlikely. They're likely only going to have one loss, likely losing to Ohio State, although that's not a slam dunk either. You have to think if all else prevails, Aggies and Bama and Georgia, if they all win, it's got to be Aggies versus Bama in the SEC championship. You got to look at Ole Miss. They don't have the tiebreaker with Georgia. Like it's where does the Irish fit in? Like when you look at all these spots, like the Sooners, the Longhorns, Louisville, like they're likely not going to get in, right?
Louisville gets in if they win the ACC. If they don't, then they probably do not get in.
So it's likely it's a three-team race there with Virginia, Louisville, and Georgia Tech. So still a lot of football to play there. Notre Dame, they look like they're in pretty good position, right?
Yeah, and they're a team like you would mention where they fit in. They don't fit in anywhere. They're the most clear-cut team in the country. Out of the teams that have losses, the undefeated, you do your Notre Dame. You win the rest of your games you're in. You lose one, you're out.
Yeah. So it's they're already in playoff mode there. Vandy's in playoff mode.
I will say, obviously, we saw them struggle against Miami and Texas A&M. I would not want to play Notre Dame right now. They are running the ball very well and playing good defense.
Julian Love, he's a Heisman candidate, right? He's
Jeremiah Love.
Jeremiah Love. Did I say?
Yeah.
What did I say?
You said Julian Love.
Julian Love. Yeah, definitely not Julian Love.
No.
Jeremiah Love. Excuse me. I get a little like, yeah. I did this the other night when I was calling a high school game. I called the Cougars the Wildcats all night long because they had the Kansas State logo, and I knew they were the Cougars, but just that logo just automatic, and no one corrected me, so I didn't even know I was doing it. So when it comes to names like that, that's kind of what happens. So
I was in a very spirited debate on Twitter today about is Jeremiah. It was asked by a Midwest guy, is Jeremiah Love the best player in the country? I said no, but he's top 5.
Yeah, he's up there. He's definitely up there. I honestly, it's hard to debate against Fernando Mendoza. I don't know where you stand on that, but
certainly Heisman wise, I think it's him. Best player, irregardless of order. I would probably say Arvell Reese, linebacker for Ohio State. He's unbelievable this year, but I would give Mendoza the Heisman nod at this point. Yes.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be hard to knock him off that pedestal, but most valuable player defensively, Reese, and probably you could say Jeremiah Love MVP on offense. I think you take him off of Notre Dame, and I don't think they have
another good running back, Price, but he's fumbled a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Ty Simpson's going to be in New York if they win the rest of their games too in the regular season.
Yeah. And then where's Marcel Reed stand in that?
I mean, if they're undefeated, I would think he also goes to New York.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. And the Aggies could win their first ever SEC championship. One for one, baby. 1 for 1.
They've never gotten there, have they?
No, they've never.
Yeah.
They were almost there last year. If they would have beat Texas last game of the year, they would have gone. I don't know how they would have fared against Georgia in that game, but they were definitely it was definitely the winner of that Texas A&M game at Kyle Field, which was kind of disappointing because they could have won that one. But again, you gotta look at this. The SEC is going to get way more than 3 teams in this year, right?
Yeah, it's going to be at least 4, and there's a chance for a 5th. I think that's unlikely, but I kind of predicted this in the summer, but last year we had the Big Ten got 4, the SEC got 3. I think that reverses this year. I think the Big Ten only gets to 3. There are scenarios where Washington wins the rest of them, but it's unlikely to happen. Same with Illinois. But I think Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon are the only 3 that make it out of the Big Ten.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm predicting. I mean, what if you get Vandy winning out? What if you get Texas? Well, obviously, if Texas wins out, they go in over Vandy with the head-to-head, and they go in over Oklahoma on the head-to-head. So you're likely getting A&M, Bama, and then if Georgia somehow loses Georgia Tech, they're out. But if they win, you're getting Georgia and Ole Miss. So does that just knock out Oklahoma, Texas, and Vandy just all together, you think, if those 4 teams hold serve?
That might, the scenario you just mentioned could be the scenario where 5 get in if Texas also wins the rest of their games.
Okay. Because,
you have all those 1 loss, and then Texas also would get in.
Yeah. Okay. I figured that. But if let's say Texas loses actually Texas can't win out if
A&M they have 2 losses.
Serve.
Yeah.
They can't win out because A&M, they play A&M. So if
You're
A&M
right.
holds serve, Texas won't. So Texas drops out if A&M wins.
Where it gets interesting is if that's A&M's only loss, because then both of them might get in. And I was going to say, in that scenario, we also Texas would likely be in the conference title game, but we don't know about A&M based on how Bama and Georgia also do. Because losing to Texas, 1 loss doesn't necessarily guarantee you a spot in the conference title game.
Yeah, that'll get real interesting because Bama holds the tiebreaker over Georgia, so it'd likely be Alabama, Texas is what you're looking at if they hold serve.
Yes, in that scenario, I think it would be.
But then if you got an 11-1 Ole Miss, do they get in the title game?
Oh, so that Bama, Ole Miss, Georgia, or no, Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, that becomes a 3-way tie then because they all have 1 loss. So I think the head-to-head goes out the window then, and they look at some other things.
Yeah, it's a laundry list. So it's going to be interesting nonetheless. So this it's definitely still alive. Vandy, win. You're not guaranteed, but win and you're in, essentially. Just win. Let the rest of it, let the rest of the chips fall where they may, because honestly, and we'll talk about this here in just a minute, but when you look at the impact, just the overall impact of being in this conversation for this long, now you're looking at something where, hey, recruiting wise, we can get some guys in, but we're gonna talk about that coming up next. But first, Mike, I want to talk about FanDuel, and man, there's a lot happening with FanDuel right now. The NBA is kicking off, and there's nothing more difficult to bet than November NBA basketball. But there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. You got football too. You got a lot of stuff happening. And if you missed the start of the game or want to ride a hot hand, if you're betting basketball or football or whatever the case may be, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to 4th quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps the game very exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen. Thanks for hanging with me, Mike Huesmann of Off Season After Dark. If you need a second listen, check him out. Chris Gordy, also on Locked On SEC, is another place that you can go, or any of the family of shows within this network that represent the SEC. You can't go wrong. So, Mike, we talked about, and this is not on the rundown, but we talked about a playoff run, successful or not, because there's a lot of variables now, because I think if Vandy would have beaten Texas, won the rest of the games, been sitting at 11-1, it's hard to leave them out.
But you're in for sure at 11-1. There's not a debate there.
Yeah. No, not at all. From the SEC at 11-1, doesn't matter if you're Vandy or not, you're in. But at 10-2, it gets a little dicey because of head-to-heads, tiebreakers. How many, like, you just completely run out of spots at that point. You know, you've got the 5 auto bids, then you've got 7 other bids on the line. Well, really 6, because you're assuming Notre Dame's going to win out. Yeah. So you've got probably 8 or 9 teams fighting for 6 spots.
I think every Big Ten and SEC team with only 2 losses will get in the playoffs, because there's so much football to play. Right now, we're looking at all these 1-2 loss teams. There's a lot of ball to play. Not all those teams are going to win out. So I do think the 1 and 2 loss teams and undefeateds all get in from those 2 conferences anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just a lot to play. Now, if Vanderbilt, for some reason, even if they went out, if a bunch of scenarios happen to where you've got a 10-2 team left out, and let's just say for hypothetical purposes, Vandy wins out. They go 10-2, they miss the playoff. From a recruiting standpoint, what does that do? Whether it's high school recruiting or portal recruiting, what does that do with NIL, everything, if you're in the conversation in a playoff push?
I think you're still in a great spot because it's the best season you've had in years. So I think you're still looking at it from a point of advantage, and you can also, like you said, the portal, you can still bring in guys for the spring semester. Your high school recruits are still probably going to be very happy with the season you had. I don't think, obviously with the team now and coaches, there would be a letdown and missing out on the playoffs. From a recruiting standpoint, I don't think that happens.
No, because you're seeing, this is why with Vanderbilt, and this is why, Clark Lea is an attractive candidate, but I just don't see him leaving because Vanderbilt has deep pockets. And I told this to Brad, and I think I said this to you as well. They're too arrogant. They've been in the past too arrogant to spend it on football. They have money all over the place, and they're private institutions that they don't have to disclose any of that. But they can, if they really wanted to, if they really said, you know what, we're going to push up our sleeves and we're going to get competitive in the NIL market, they absolutely could. And
it's like what SMU decided to do a couple years ago.
Yeah. And SMU, again, it was like, you know what? We hadn't done this since the 80s. Let's give it another go and see where they are. Right. And this will be, I think, since the 1920s, Vanderbilt's best season since the 1920s, if that happens. Now, if you win nine, it's best since James Franklin was patrolling the sideline.
Yeah.
But again, I think when you compare that, I didn't think that was ever going to last because I didn't think James Franklin was going to stay at Vanderbilt. I just didn't think he was, I just didn't think that was his end destination. For Clark Lea, I feel like this is his destination job. And this is a job that he wants to be in for the rest of his career. And I think it would take a considerably large amount of money to pull him away from that. And I don't know if teams are willing to pay the Vanderbilt coach, no matter how good you are, the stigma of being the Vanderbilt coach and hiring and paying $15 million to the Vanderbilt coach is something where I don't know that teams and fan bases are ready for that. And so for that, I don't think he's going anywhere. Again, to reiterate what we talked about on the last episode, but also when you look at how the money's being allocated, you're in good shape to build this thing for the future.
You are. And I don't know if the Vanderbilt thing will play into it as much. He's been there. He's an alumni. He was also the DC at Notre Dame before. So they're going to look at that resume and say, this guy's worked his way up and done good things. But I think for a lot of the reasons you said, the resources Vandy has, him being a Vandy guy through and through, it would take a real lot to get him to leave. We're having two guys right now that are in that similar scenario. Brent Key being the other one at Georgia Tech. Alumni, has his program on the rise. I think there's a way better shot that he leaves Tech than there is that Clark Lea leaves Vandy. And I think a lot of it has to do with the SEC stability right now.
The SEC stability and the fact that Vanderbilt can match, Georgia Tech cannot.
Correct.
Georgia Tech cannot match. And economically, if he gets the number that he desires, like Georgia Tech, I love you. If you could match it, I'll stay. If you can't, sorry, so long. See you later. Enjoy. And then you would have to think they would elevate Buster as the head coach, but that's not a slam dunk either. But it'd be very interesting. Like if Florida gets Brent Key, watch out. He's good. He's a program builder.
Yeah,
he's a really good coach.
He's done way better than I thought he would. I will openly say that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, let's finally turn the page here into this Auburn matchup here with Vanderbilt. When you look at the way Vanderbilt came off of that Texas game. And when you look at how Auburn has been playing defense all year long, now when you look at their SEC ranks, Mike, and you can back me up with FBS ranks on top of that. But when you look at rush defense for Auburn, they're third in the conference currently, giving up 83 yards per game. Your defensive coordinator is now your head coach. How does that play into it at all? And does that with their defense specifically, like what are some numbers that if you're a Vandy fan looking at this from Diego Pavia's perspective, like what gives you a little bit of concern here?
For Auburn, you look at this and like, this is a pretty good matchup for us. Stylistically, Auburn probably likes what they see when their defense is going against Vandy's offense. Like you said, they're the third best run D in the conference. That's ninth in the country. And passed either a little lower, 76 in the country. But the way their defense is styled to play and wants to get after it is a lot like Texas did, which for most of the game that worked against Vandy. You have very good D linemen who are going to clog up blockers and let their linebackers scrape and make tackles. Auburn's good at that, and that's how you're going to have to beat Vandy.
Here's the edge that I see when I look at Auburn versus Texas. I think when you look at how Texas operates on defense versus how Auburn operates on defense, I think a lot of the and this is the difference in having only 2 losses versus 5. But you look at how Auburn plays defense, they're a lot more aggressive in coming after you and getting upfield. Texas is the overall team speed, I think, with Texas is a little bit faster than Auburn.
Way faster. Yeah.
And so they can kind of play a little more conservatively because with Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, those guys can go sideline to sideline and erase a lot of things that you can get in the run game. I feel like Auburn has to manufacture that a little bit more. And to me, Vanderbilt, when you look at stylistically, and there's not really numbers to back up this claim because it's not really a numbers-based claim. It's just the fact that Vandy gains a lot of their yards using teams' aggressiveness against them. I see Auburn's defense as a better version of what LSU does. And I think when you look at it from a stylistic perspective, yeah, they're great against the run, but they haven't played a rushing attack quite like Vanderbilt. So they have to be a little less aggressive and play a little bit more base defense. And that's what Vanderbilt forces teams to do.
Yeah, and they've certainly played good run teams, but stylistically, nobody that's going to do quite what Vandy's doing with the duos and using, that aggressiveness against them. And I think in talking about, Texas could sit back more, Auburn has to be more aggressive. It's because Texas's D-backs are studs. You can leave them out there and they're going to be able to stick to guys. Very few teams have guys at corner like that.
Yeah, the teams,
both guys.
Which is baffling how Texas has lost 2 games. But yeah. I guess it's a volume. My guess is that it's a volume thing because Vanderbilt had decent amount of volume offensively because Texas was just scoring so dang quick. Vanderbilt was just on the field a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think by the 4th quarter, Vandy had kind of just broken them down enough to be able to mount some sort of comeback. They got a couple fortunate calls, of course, and then they just kind of made it happen. But
Texas's D got tired at the end of the game too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the volume of plays Vanderbilt had wore them down a little bit, and then they just weren't as quick and as electric and as explosive as they were. Again, I think maybe emotions play into that as well. They were emotionally charged in the first half, and maybe coming down off of that a little bit. That wears you out more than people like to give credit for. And that's kind of like that unknown factor in fatigue when you look at that. But we're going to talk a little bit about Auburn's offense because that is the biggest mystery of all time. We're going to do that next. All right, wrapping up here with Mike Huesmann, Offseason After Dark. Man, I'm so stoked that Offseason After Dark is just really taking off like a 747. Man, it's great. And you're talking with Arkansas next, right? Is that you're going back to the SEC?
Yep, we're doing Hog Report. That will be Wednesday of this week, and looking like we'll have Appalachian State next week. Trying to hammer out some times though.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're watching this, all you got to do next is just click over to Mike Huesmann's video. So there you go. But looking at Auburn's offense, first of all, it's just I don't know if we need to even really get into how they play offense. I mean, we've talked a little bit about their quarterback situation, but like if you look at it let's look at it from Vanderbilt's perspective, because they had a lot of trouble with Texas. Why do they have trouble with Texas? Speed. And why Texas again has lost 2 games is beyond me, because they have a ton of team speed out there. They just haven't been able to get into a rhythm to be able to do that. You said that
they lost to other teams that were also pretty quick. Was if you look at Florida and Ohio State, both good team speed.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. I didn't analyze the overall team speeds. I just kind of saw that they were able to get Texas out of a rhythm offensively. Some of that was just Arch Manning getting in the groove, especially against Ohio State. But Florida just had a good game plan because I don't know. But with Vanderbilt, they played horrible on the perimeter, tackling wise, communication, coverage wise. I thought they played horribly up until about midway through the fourth quarter, which was way too late to mount any sort of resistance. They weren't even hardly mounting any resistance. Texas, I think the reason why Texas didn't score a touchdown on every drive is because they had a miscue or misfire. But for Vanderbilt, it comes down to them being able to tackle better, cover better, and just play, because they're remarkably solid. They don't have elite team speed, but they're not slow either. They're kind of just solid. They play faster than they actually are because of their knowledge of the assignment. But against LSU, they were breaking up fast screens. They were tackling in space well in all 7 wins. The 2 losses, they were giving up huge holes in the zones, and they weren't tackling well on the perimeter.
Yeah, and one thing that plays to Vandy's strengths in this game, where they're good on defense, is where Auburn is effective on. I mean, Auburn is really only good at running the ball. Their pass game has been very poor, despite having stud receivers. They've not figured out how to throw the ball effectively. They are the 119th throwing team in the nation. In fact, they're running and throwing for the exact same number of yards per game, 165.
Oh, geez.
That shouldn't be this. You want to be throwing for quite a bit more usually.
Yeah.
So and you talked about the perimeter stuff. Cobb doesn't run to the perimeter a ton. They do it sometimes, but they're more of an inside team, and I don't see him breaking a lot of long ones, which is what they might need against this Vandy team.
Now, with Derek Nix calling the plays, does he go a little bit more outside and try to find Cam Coleman, or is it just so far down the road now that you just got to kind of stick with what you got?
I think that's an unknown, and I haven't looked enough into what Nix has done in the past as a play caller to.
I don't think there's much to look into.
Yeah.
To be honest, and they, again, we talked about the quarterback situation. Whatever that is going to affect what they do on the perimeter. If it does end up being Jackson Arnold, which we won't know really until Saturday, or until I see something that comes out, but you got to look at it and say, okay, well, if it's Jackson Arnold, which I got to assume that it is at this point, they're going to predicate on the run game, and they're going to try to find things in the run game. They're going to throw fast screens out there. They're going to try to get an extension of the run game going, and just maybe try to get some easy throws out there. That would be the first thing I would try to do, is like, hey, I got Cam Coleman out there. Let's just throw an easy completion and just see what he can do.
I think you have to. And one of the stats, I talk about every week when we're breaking this down, is third down offense. Vandy's obviously good at it. They're 8th in the country. They've actually moved up one spot after last week, so they're 8th now. Auburn, 106th on third downs in the country. They're only converting 36% of them. That's because you can't, with most teams, I always say that's usually because you're not running the ball well on first and second down. I think with Auburn, it's because you can't throw on third down when you get there. You just can't complete passes when you have to.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing, Auburn is 134, dead last in the country in allowing sacks. They're the only team in the country allowing more than 4 sacks a game. So that will be something where Vandy certainly could take advantage of them.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's certainly a lot of avenues for that. But this is going to be, again, I think you throw a lot of your conventional wisdom about Auburn out of the window at this point. Yeah. But looking at them, it's definitely going to be a mystery. And I just, it is what it is. I don't, it's a big spread. 7.5 is a big spread. Don't know how much movement it'll get, but like Vandy has to win by more than a touchdown, and against that defense, I'm not sure that they do.
Based on these teams stylistically and how they match up with each other, I don't know that I would bet more than a touchdown on either of them, just because I think we're looking at a low scoring game.
I think you're looking at a kind of a Missouri type game, 17-10, 20-13, 21-14.
Hopefully not another Auburn 10-3 game.
Yeah, that would be crazy. But anyway, well, Mike, thanks for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and make sure like and subscribe. Do the same with All Season After Dark. And until next time, anchor down.